Thanks so much for joining us today on Feelin Good, sponsored by Warren County Community Services. I'm your host, Shelley Abrams, and as you can see, hats are the thing today. We are so fortunate to be able to share with you, our audience, these two ladies who are new friends of mine, and I would like to introduce these two milliners to you. First of all, Mary Ward and Virginia Rapp. And I feel like I know you two already because we've been emailing back and forth, but I have to say that I discovered the Two Stitches Millinery online. I think I'm trying to remember exactly what drew me to your website, but once I saw that you were milliners, I was drawn in and contacted you right away and said, please, could you come to Lebanon from Milford and tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into the hat making business? And just look at the display of hats that we have here today. So I will be quiet and turn the show over to Mary and Virginia to share with us first, how did you two meet?
Oh, we met in school, high school.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
we've been friends for a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. So you're lifelong friends.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Very good. And you're originally from Milford?
From Claremont County, yeah.
Okay, very good. So how did you get into the hat making business?
Well, Virginia and I have both sewn all our lives, and I was making these little intricate little evening bags. And I was doing this show, and Virginia said, I'll go and help you. And so she came around, and we went to the show, and we got to talking about it, and we started, we could do things together. And so we started working on a whole bunch of stuff that clearly not where we were at this point in our, in our millinery career. And at some point about 10 or 12 years ago, Virginia said, I kind of like making these hats. And so I jumped on her bandwagon of making hats, and so we've been making hats together for 10, 12 years.
10, 12 years, yeah.
So you started off, both of you were seamstresses, just
I sewed for my kids, my children, and my mother was a 4-H club leader, so she taught me to sew and taught me a bunch of bad habits that it's taken me several years to break. Bless your heart, Mama. So, yeah.
Well, I love it that you started maybe in high school, junior high.
Well, we met each other in high school because we went to different elementary and junior high schools and met each other in high school. So we've known each other since our freshman years.
Okay.
Just a few years ago.
Okay, very good. So you started making little bags, like little evening bags. Okay.
I'm kind of the two of us. I'm kind of like the fussy, the more glam.
And you will see that as you look at our styles of hats, how we are different. We complement one another in our work, but we certainly do different styles.
I'm a little gussier. She's more casual, and it's a nice marriage.
Compliment.
Yeah, it's
a
a nice
compliment.
marriage. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, impressions of hats. Let me give you my impression first. I love hats. I have always loved hats, and today, this is a visor, really, that I hardly ever wear for golf, but I have worn for Easter before because it has a bow in the back, and it's almost too fussy for golf. So I wear the basic visors for golf, and then I save this one. Well, my granddaughter, who's 6, loves to put this hat on also and say, Grandma, look, I have your hat on. So that's sort of Amelia's hat and my hat together. So I wanted to wear it today. But tell us about the hats that you have on right now and where you got the patterns, the styles, etc.
Okay. Well, my hat is called a bucket hat with a short brim turn up. The fabric is a canvas, a cotton canvas fabric, and it's a Charlie Harper print.
I love it.
It's from his painting of the loons, and so I got the fabric at a local store in Cincinnati, and we do source from different stores in Cincinnati. We source online. We get lots of fabric from different locations. So this one happens to be kind of a spring summer going. You could also do fall winter because it's a little darker in color. So
well, maybe just tip your head a little bit so we can see the Charlie Harper. I love Charlie Harper prints, and I can see in the crown of the hat. Now you've got the butterick pattern. Is this what you used?
I'm not sure this is the exact one, but this is a pattern for a bucket hat.
yeah,
Okay.
similar to this particular style here. And a lot of times, Virginia and I can both tell you that we might take this as a base, and then we'll put a shorter brim on it, or a longer brim, or just kind of
alter it a little bit, change it.
Okay, love that. Okay, and then Virginia, what would you say your style is, which I also
This
love?
style, I would say, is for a sun hat, and actually Mary made this hat and gave it to me because I walk every day, and I try and keep my face out of the sun and try to protect myself as much as possible, and this does a very good job of it. And I don't know where she got this fabric, possibly from the upholstery shop.
Yeah, I think
we
that
do
was
use some heavier
that's
weights.
a cotton canvas as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So your source for fabrics can be a wide range,
Right.
correct?
Well, in Cincinnati, your range is not too wide because your fabric sources there have dwindled over the years. You have the standard Joann's and Hobby Lobby, and there's a cute little shop over in College Hill called Silk Road Textiles, which is where I got the fabric for this hat.
Okay.
We've actually been to Waynesville to the upholstery fabric store there, bought fabric there.
And ordering online.
Yeah,
but ordering online for me is difficult to. I have a hard time visualizing what it's going to look like if I can't touch it and feel it.
Right. And sometimes colors are different, when you order online, so you have to be careful there too.
Well, I just love, and the hats just attract attention. I mean, I'm sure that you have people that comment when you wear your hats.
Oh yeah.
Well, Virginia wears hats more often than I do.
I hardly leave the house without a hat on.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going out to dinner and I know I'm going to be inside all the time. But during the day, it's a hat if I step outside. Gardening, I need to keep my face protected from the sun.
So it's fashion and function.
Yes, it is.
Exactly.
As far as that's concerned. Well, I was mentioning to you during my ILR lifelong learning classes, we've been studying the fashions of the 1920s. And of course, even when we look back to the turn of the century, how important hats were. They were just part of a woman's, repertoire of fashion accessories and men's accessories as well. And Dave mentioned that he has a couple of hats he would have brought in had he realized.
Had he realized we were here today?
We'll turn the camera on Dave when he wears his hat, and Paul as well. But
back in history, when you think about it, women were required to have a head covering. And it started out as a kerchief or a veil or a wimple even, like a nun wears. But they had to have a head covering, and that was really pretty much driven by the church. And then structured hats came in to the scene, and they were primarily based on men's hats from, aristocrats in society. And it wasn't until like the 17th century that women's hats actually came into being an item on their own. So, but they've worn, for years, women have worn hats.
Well, I think now, let's look at the different styles. I was going to say more current styles of hats are wide-ranging, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
And you've brought quite an array here. So, please let us. What would you like to start showing us first?
You want to start on that?
I can start with this. This is a hat that Mary made. It's the same pattern actually as the one that I have on, except she took some liberties with it as she was cutting it out and designing it. And
Now let me ask you, do you use,
Yes,
the fabric is a little firmer, but do you use interfacing?
Yes, we do use interfacings of all different weights. It depends on what the hat is supposed to do, whether you use a stiff interfacing or not. This is what the pattern that this hat was originally cut from, so it doesn't look exactly like this one or the one that I have on my head, but it is the same pattern.
Okay.
This hat,
is it this pattern?
Came from this pattern, a butterick pattern.
Okay.
And I bought a dress with this, out of this material, and it was too long, and I cut it off, and I said, I think I can get a hat out of that. So I started looking for pieces of fabric that I could put with it, that I could marry it up with and wear it. So I've worn it several times with that dress, and I love it.
Very creative. And you've got a hat pin with it, I see.
Oh yes,
there
we
as well.
often put, Mary is more adept at putting the pins and such on, but, and I think she's got some things she wants to show you about that eventually too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want to talk about embellishments?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to grab this little basket up here. It's my little bag of tricks that I brought with me today. This is just a standard little ostrich feather that's been, dyed a beautiful color of green. And to any hat, if you've got a little bit of a band on it, you can just flip that on, and so you can have an instant, little feather look, or not, depending on how you like your hat. This was some vintage crochet that actually came from one of Virginia's older sisters.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I made a hat and put this up the side, put a piece of this up the side of the hat, and it turned out really, really nice. So you really need to not narrow your focus in on certain things. What could it be an embellishment? And to that point, like this was a piece of interesting material that I got at Hobby Lobby in their dried flower and, arrangements and things like that.
Right.
And I actually used that on a hat as well. So you have to kind of look at different things in different ways. I go to pawn shops. And I got this little pulley at a pawn shop, so at some point it'll find its way to a hat.
I love that.
There are little Scrabble letters, and sometimes those might end up on a hat if I get inspired.
Which incidentally, the Scrabble letters. Do you play Words with Friends?
Yes, yes.
Which emanated from Scrabble.
From
so
Scrabble,
that made me think of that. Okay.
We can also look at vintage pens or even actually new pens. So, just depending on what the style is that you want.
Right.
I also do some ribbon embroidery, and this is silk ribbon. So anywhere, your mind should not be limited when you're thinking about embellishments. And Virginia will tell you, I am kind of like
the queen of embellishment.
I am.
I love it.
I love all of the embellishments, and I like doing different things, making ribbon medallions, using vintage. I think this was one out of your jewelry box as well, a vintage pen. So it's kind of fun. There's all kinds of braiding, cording. There's all kinds of things that you can find. You just need to go into the store or into the pawn shop or the secondhand store, wherever you might be.
With an open mind.
With a real open mind.
I would love to go shopping with you because I love to do this. Well, my grandfather managed and ran a dry goods store.
Oh, okay.
And not everyone knows what a dry goods store is, but we know what a dry goods store. Okay, so it was when you went to the Notions area.
Absolutely.
The Notions were all the embellishments and zippers and hooks and eyes and all snaps and all the fasteners. And of course, it was right by the fabrics. So you bought, fabric by the yard and so on and so forth. And I, believe it or not, I actually taught home economics early on for a few years.
That's cool.
So, but I'm really a tennis and golf player, so don't get me confused with Martha Stewart. But my degree was in home economics. But anyway, I love to see what the patterns are now for a variety of things, because in Grandpa's store he had the racks of patterns, and then he had some ready to wear items, and so forth, and linens and so forth. But nonetheless, that reminded me of, when you talked about embellishments, it reminded me of the notions in the dry goods store. So anyway, let's go on. Different styles.
This pattern makes a Mary Jane military hat.
Oh.
And the military hats are a little different from the crown of this one. They're flat on top.
Okay.
And they're pretty popular with the younger folks with long hair, short hair, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And you can make adjustments to the pattern to add different embellishments to it, or depending on what your color scheme is that you want to work with.
Right.
We always try, we don't always make it, but we always try to make them adjustable. Because if you go to a store and buy a hat and it says one size fits all, it really doesn't.
Right.
So, and this one has a little embellishment that I reached out and made a little flower on it. So
very nice. Very nice. Okay, excellent.
Virginia also, and you might want to talk about this one for a little bit. This is a prime example of upcycling.
I was going to say that is very clever.
I go to the thrift stores and look for wool sweaters. I've learned the hard way that cashmere, although you think it's woolly, it does not felt as well as plain wool sweaters. This was a lady's V-neck cardigan sweater, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to turn it into a tam so that it would look similar to this picture right here. So first thing I did was buttoned it up and threw it in the washer. And I beat the heck out of it for maybe 20 minutes and took it out and went, yep, I think it's shrunk now. And shrinking it allows you to cut the fabric and then it doesn't fall apart.
Okay.
It draws in the fibers and aggravates them so that they stick together. So I was able to cut the top of the hat off of the very front of the sweater. This band that's right in here, I was able to get a big enough piece off of the back to do that. And then I took the brim, or the hemline of the sweater, and made this piece that goes around your head.
The band.
And the band, and I put some elastic in that.
That is so
And then I
smart.
topped it off so it wouldn't be so plain with a little roving that goes with what Mary's going to show you how to do over here.
Okay.
It's using raw wool and that very fancy needle there that will really stick your fingers.
I can just bring it over here.
Alrighty.
So this is called wool roving. So it's basically raw wool. It's been dyed. You can get it in lots of different colors. You can get it natural. You can get it refined because this has got a merino to it, so it's a little silkier than some of the other ones. And I only brought my one weapon with me today. Virginia probably put that on with a little smaller needle.
I did.
But it basically pulls apart. So it just pulls apart in these real fine wisps. And if I were going to be making a hat using this form, I would take this needle. And this needle has, Virginia and I both thought they were barbs, but I was reading the other day and it's like little slits in the needle. So what it does is it grabs the fibers. It grabs the little wool pieces of the fiber, which have like little tentacles on it, the wool fibers do. And it allows you then to...
I have never seen that done before.
Really?
And we could lay this up here on this block.
Right.
We're not going to.
No, because I don't want to ruin her hat.
And put it right on there. That's how I did that.
Yeah, I could just pull that on and take a smaller needle.
That's
That's how I put this on. And if
okay.
you look at the underside, you can see where it comes through.
Right.
Oh, how clever.
Now, if I were going to make a hat using this block, I would put probably 6 or 7 layers of this and keep alternating it and taking it around the edge. And I put a little extension on this one. That's why you see these little yellow pins in there. And then when you finish doing that, it comes off as a piece of you pull it off very carefully and it comes off as a solid piece.
Okay.
And then you do a process called wet felting, where you actually use a little soap and water and you put it down on a grid of some kind. I usually use bubble wrap, so it's got a little friction on the back. And I have this little palm wash thing. So once it's a piece of fabric, I put it down on the counter and wash it, and I rub it.
Same as I did when I threw mine in the washing machine. It's to get those fibers to stick together better.
Right.
And what is this called again?
This is called a palm washer. A palm.
Okay.
So I bought it online, and it's for this purpose, for the purpose of felting, wet felting. So once you get it all washed, and you really beat the heck out of it, then you form it over some kind of a hat block. I've got a hat block in the front. I'll show you in a few minutes. So you form whatever form you want. If you want more of a cylindrical form, or if you want an intricate form, you form it. You could use it over a fedora, all different kinds. And then you let it dry, and then you embellish it. This particular little red number here, which is an interesting little hat, but I had a lady who called me and wanted a gnome hat, and she wanted like 4 of them. So this was one of my prototypes where the top would have been pulled up. But this hat, rather than needle felt it into the form like this, I just laid layers and layers and layers of fiber on a piece of plastic so that it formed a resist, and then I wet felted it in that same manner as I would the needle felting. And this turned out to be, and as you can see, it's
a gnome hat.
Yeah, and you could cut this fabric like Virginia said earlier. Yeah, she actually bought 4 of them from me. She had been in Europe and had wanted a gnome, found one, lost it, and wanted another one. Virginia and I, neither one really like to do commission work because
it takes some of the fun out of doing it when you know you've got to make it just so to meet someone else's eye that you're not sure what that is.
Yeah.
So you actually, when you talk about felting this, you actually made this fabric.
Yes, out of this. This is the same roving that I used. And this one, rather than needle felting it first, was just pulled out in wisps that you crisscross, crisscross, crisscross. You kind of have a form that you follow because it is going to shrink. It's kind of like a wool. I mean, it's going to shrink a little bit. So you follow this little form and you crisscross all of this material on it, and then you put the water and the soap and the rubbing, the friction. It requires the friction for the materials to interlock.
Okay, so did you go to hat making school? I mean, you just don't learn this. You don't learn all these things.
We did go to one class together, and we didn't learn any of this stuff there. It was a very interesting class, and we did learn something, although I was asked to leave the class because I couldn't follow the directions. Back to my mom's instructions again. But we made pillbox hat, which I've never made another one since then. I have mine on display in my sewing room. It was fun, and it was interesting, and we did learn.
And then Virginia took a wood blocking class, and so did I.
So and you've mentioned that, so let's show a
little bit about wood blocking.
Okay.
I'm going to reach over here and just point to this particular hat block. This hat block happens to be a puzzle block, so it comes apart. And if it didn't come apart, you wouldn't be able to get the form off of it once you got it, on that particular form. This is the hat that it makes. So it's an interesting, almost like a pillbox form with a little dome at the top.
Right.
And these particular little tendrils, what you do is you put the hood over. Well, let me back up just a little bit. You take the hood, and let me show you a hood.
Okay.
This is a hood.
All right.
Okay. So you buy this from a millinery supply store.
Okay.
And this is what is called a hood. This one actually has what's called a Salome finish. It's a real pretty, glossy, pretty finish. This one was more of a velour. You wet I wet it. I dump mine in a bucket of water, wet it, put it in a plastic bag for several hours or overnight. Then the next day, when you take it out, or hours later, you use that. It becomes more malleable, and you use a lot of steam. And you can use steam from your iron. I happen to have a millinery steamer. You can use a tea kettle if you don't have anything else but what you want to do is keep this thing really wet, warm, steamy, so that when you do that, you can kind of make all of these little adjustments, and it forms down over this particular form. And then down here, there's some rope lines, and so you tie it down with ropes.
Really?
They're small ropes,
it's
like cording.
To shrink up.
And you get it to form, you get it to where you like it. It's all smooth. Everything is really nice, and you leave it to dry for 2-3 days because it takes a while for it to dry. And then when you come back, this is what I ended up with, and I had to cut some of the bottom of it off, which is what this is, these little tendrils at the
Okay,
top.
okay.
And then I put a ribbon inside and some elastic to adjust it to make it a little smaller. And that's particular hat off of that form. This one was a little bit more free form. It was just a dome hat block, and you just went, again, it's very malleable, so you bring it up and you can put all these tucks in it. You can roll your brim to make it a nice under-rolled brim, and then I stitched that down. Again, put the elastic in for sizing. And this is off of a hood as well, like this. This hat, which I call a gambler, started out on what's called a cape line. And I brought my big orange one because
Good.
I just got this, and I'm thinking Bengals all the way. Don't you think?
For sure, for sure.
So I'm gonna work on this one for fall, for our fall line, and it's gonna have a lot of black trim on it. So it's gonna be a Bengals hat.
Perfect.
But this is how this hat started out. So again, it's an unfinished hat. This is we call it a cape line. A lot of people in the States call it a cape line. Some people in Europe call it a capeline, but it is an unfinished hat form.
And this would come from?
This one I actually bought through a Milliner's Exchange on Facebook.
Okay.
But there is also in LaGrange, Kentucky, there's a millinery store called Judith M. And we buy a lot of these kinds of things from Judith M. and from that store. So it's a regular milliner store.
Oh, and where in Kentucky is it?
LaGrange, Kentucky.
Okay. Okay.
So when when you end up then forming this kind of hat, this one was formed on a dome. You could make a fedora, you could make a flat top, whatever you want to do. And then when you finish it up, like this belt came from a thrift store. So you just try to put some little interesting embellishments on it. And
I have so many embellishments that I could give to you at my house because I have collected all these things. Having taught, I think, I could use this for something someday. I don't want to throw it away. And so I have, a little cachet of things. So I'll come down to your shop and bring a few things.
Okay.
So, okay, well, I see it looks like kind of rain hats, garden hats.
We have a variety here. This one happens to be a sun hat. Mary, if you'd hold that up there so they can see it.
Okay.
It can be made reversible. I did not make it reversible because I thought that for a sun hat, the fabric is rather dense already, and I was afraid it would be too stiff. So I left it as just a one-sided hat. It does have a elastic in the back so that you can adjust it. The brim has extra interfacing in it so that it stays down where it's supposed to protect you. This has the top, as I mentioned before, like a baseball cap.
Okay.
It has 6 pieces of pie laying here, and that's what forms that top. You could take that and put this bill on it, and you would have a baseball cap instead of a sun hat.
Okay.
Both do the same job. They're keeping your face out of the sun. This particular hat is more on the winter line. It's a Northwestern walking hat, and it allowed me to put earmuffs in. If you've got a dog you want to take out early in the morning and it's a little nippy. It also has a string if you're out in the windy weather or you're riding your motorcycle and you don't want to get your hat lost. You can tie it down.
There we go. Sure.
But it protects you completely from the sun.
Okay.
And I've made these in both summer weight fabrics and the heavier denim. This one is a rain hat, different pattern, different look. This is short, it's in the front. This keeps the rain from going down the back of your neck. This happens to be the one that I wear when I'm out walking, so it's beat up a little bit, but that's
smart.
That's what they're for, is to be worn.
Okay, so do you have a machine application that, I mean, you don't sew these together on a regular?
Yes, yes.
You
My
do?
machine is just a
regular machine. You don't have any special?
No, mine happens to be an embroidery machine because at one point in our career as the Two Stitches, I tried to sell embroidery work, and too many people thought I was painting stuff on with ink, which was rather frustrating, so I kind of quit.
Yeah. Yeah, we both have, I mean, the flat pattern, we call it flat pattern millinery, and basically what you're doing is taking a flat pattern, a paper pattern.
Okay.
We buy commercial patterns, butter McCall's, Vogue. We order online from patterns. There are a lot of pattern makers online, and you can order online. Sometimes we make our own, by using pieces from different patterns and putting them together.
Right.
Or using it in a different way. So that works pretty good too.
So creative. I love the way. What is this little number right there?
This is my pride and joy. Virginia made this hat, and I said, I want it. I love it. So we traded. Virginia does a lot of beautiful crochet work. This is a hat that has been crocheted using a lot of different kind of fibers and, combining different colors and shades. And then this is actually, is it raccoon?
Raccoon.
Feel how soft. Isn't that nice and soft?
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So these are, you can get a lot of these that aren't really as nice as this one. But this one I love. So I wanted to bring this hat to show that Virginia in particular does a lot of crochet work, and some of that is really intricate and fun and kind of bouncy.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
And I have tried to duplicate this hat, but I think I must have strayed from the pattern at some point because I've never been able to really duplicate it.
Duplicate the same one.
I love it.
And speaking of straying from the pattern,
Yes.
this is a lady's felted newsboy hat.
Okay.
And I have taken that pattern and read it and tried to figure out how I can make a hat that will fit on my new block. This happens to be my favorite hat of all. And I bought this at a thrift store 10 years ago, I think. And I said, I've got to find a block that I can make that. I finally found one. But the problem was it didn't come with a pattern on what you do with it. So I started improvising and adding stitches, and I have this ready to go in the washing machine like I did the sweater for the other hat.
Right.
And hopefully it will come out this size and be the perfect little hat.
I'm speechless, which doesn't happen very often, but
We'll say a little prayer that this works. I did try to document everything I did, but
that leads me to ask you, do you give lessons, hat making lessons, or that kind of thing?
We don't.
no, we've
No,
never.
we don't.
No.
We've
Okay.
we've never really been approached to do that. But I think between the two of us, we tell people that this keeps us off the streets. It just. So we like to sell our hats, because if you don't sell them, what do you do with them? You get so many that what do you do with them?
Right.
So we tell people that we enjoy really making the hats, and we do shows. Well, we were doing shows until COVID hit, and then we gave that up. And now we have hats in a couple of different venues. And
Well, we were talking about maybe a couple boutique opportunities
Right.
that we might introduce you to
That'd
as
be great.
well,
Yeah.
and might work. Oh, I mean, I'll definitely introduce you, but might work out.
Yeah.
Might work out for you. Well, your story is amazing, and I'm noticing something that you brought.
Yeah, I did.
We're seeing all these different hats, and I hear different people say, "Oh, okay, I don't wear a hat because it gives me a headache. I don't wear a hat because it doesn't look good on they don't think it looks good with their face or on their head." There's a hat for everyone, isn't there?
There is.
And tell us, how do you figure that out?
Okay.
What type of hat looks best on you?
Well, we often say that wearing a hat is more about attitude than it is about anything else.
Okay.
And because in the United States in particular, in the 50s and 60s, women pretty much quit wearing hats. So in this day and age, it's that niche market that still really enjoys wearing a hat. But if we had a nickel for every woman that came into our booth when we were doing shows that said, "Oh, I love hats, but I'm just not a hat person.
I just can't wear hats."
I can't wear it." They haven't tried on the right hat. And a lot of it has to do with with your face. There, the standard shapes of your face are, there's 6 standard ones: oval, circle, oblong. Some of those are called something else in a different, different,
No, but
depending on which
basically-
site you go to.
right,
But basically,
right.
you have these 6 basic shapes.
Right.
And if you, for instance, have an oblong face, then what they say is that the best hat for you is more of one with a brim, comes down a little further on your forehead so that it doesn't make your face any longer. So they're talking about a sun hat or maybe even a cloche that comes down a little further, or a fedora.
Okay.
So if you spend a little time thinking about your shape of your face and looking online, there's lots of, all you have to do is go on and Google hats for the shape of my face. I think that's what I Googled when I found these pictures.
Okay.
If you go on there and then you have somebody look at you, like I had my husband look at me this morning and say, what's the shape of my face, you know? And you do that, and then you kind of know which hats to stay away from and which hats to go for. I cannot wear a beanie. I mean, I can wear this one on the back of my head like this, but pull it down on the front, I can't wear it.
And nor can I.
We
need one. We both have
we
something
both look
out
like
here
all
front.
nose, you know? So,
I have to have a brim. Now, this brim might be a little bit big for me, but I like it.
yeah. So once you learn what styles, I mean, if you're fortunate, we do have those women that come in and they can wear anything.
Oh, yeah.
Just anything. And, you know,
We are
but
fortunate.
that isn't the majority of women. You have to kind of know what fits you. And then you have to have that little bit of attitude that,
Well, I was telling you, I was sharing this story with you about how, you know, I think if you can't wear a hat, I mean, well, anyone can wear a hat, but it's Easter Sunday.
right.
If you don't feel like you could wear a hat to church, and yet I hardly see anyone at church with a hat on, and it used to embarrass my boys. They would say, Mom, you are the only adult woman. Everybody else are like, you know, little girls that have hats on, and you. And I said, well, I just love hats. And then I would have other people come up and say, oh, I love your hat. And I didn't wear it for that reason, but I guess, like you say, it's just kind of a crowning touch.
It is. It is. Well, and we have a lot of people say, well, I don't want to wear a hat because it messes up my hair. Well, you have to, there's two schools of thoughts. Depends on the hat and how it fits you as to whether it really messes up your hair. And the other thought is, if it's part of your outfit, why are you taking it off anyway?
Right. Which
once you put it on, you leave it on.
Right. Yeah. Because the hat hair, you know, I'd rather keep the hat on my head and just go with the
I'm pretty fortunate. I can take the hat off and go like this, and
your hat
and
my
hair my hair's fine. Mary can do that now too. She's got a new style that allows her to do that. So you know, you do what works for you.
Well, and when I was getting ready for the show earlier today, it was raining like crazy, and I thought, okay, I'm just pulling my hair back, and so it's very tight on the top of my head, and I pulled it back here. And I thought, okay, I'm leaving this on the whole day. So, you know,
if it's comfortable, that's fine.
Right. Yeah. I had heard at one time that American women primarily usually did not wear hats the way they were made to be worn. And tell me that. Because remember I told you, in fact, I tipped mine back a little bit because I was afraid it was too shady. Yeah. It was supposed to be like brow, you know, kind of even with your brow, rather than tipping it clear back on your head, which American women, I just heard that. Maybe it was myth. But, you know, so I do try to wear mine pulled down. And I have a pretty high forehead, so I have a lot of room to fill with a hat brim.
I wear mine off to the side, almost any hat I put on. This one, my little favorite hat that I'm replicating here, I wear it off, you know, sitting at an angle, not straight on my face.
Right.
Probably because this one, to me, doesn't have a large enough bill
on the front. Well, and I think that comment really goes back to the shape of your face. I don't think there's any, especially in the United States, for women wearing hats, there are no rules anymore.
Okay.
So I think if you have a longer oblong face, you might want to wear your hat down a little further just to keep that in proportion. But I don't think from what I've researched in the U.S., there's no, particular way to wear the hat. And you're right, a lot of women in the United States don't wear hats.
We have a couple gals that follow where we're located, where we have our hats, and they can walk in and pick out 5 different styles and put them on, and they look great in every single one of them.
Well, and it may be generational
it is.
well.
Yes, it is.
People that were raised, and their grandmothers, mothers, dads wore hats. We haven't talked too much about men. Do you make men's hats?
We did a little bit, and I have to say that men's hats are a little bit harder to size than women's are, for me.
Yeah.
I had a hard time when they would say 6 7/8 or, give me that number. I had a hard time meeting that exact number, and they wanted it to be exact.
Okay, so speaking of
They don't want to
that-
have elastic in it anywhere.
Okay. So speaking of sizing, how do you measure?
With a standard tape measure.
Okay.
Wrap this down here.
This is not a standard one. This one is a little special one for measuring your head, but it's basically
a soft measure.
a soft tape measure.
Okay.
And you measure from right at the knob of your head back here. I think that's called something, Mary. What is that?
The occipital bone? Don't quote me on that.
And right above the ears, all the way around.
Alrighty.
I happen to be a little bit bigger than a 22, loose. I like them loose, so I say 22 and a half, maybe even 23. Mary is more on the 22 side.
Okay.
And there are standard, as you can see here, there are standard hat charts, size charts.
Right.
Which correspond to these standard small, medium, large.
Right. The same as with patterns. When you cut that pattern out, it gives you a small, medium, large, extra large, and they coordinate with these numbers.
Okay.
And as Virginia mentioned before, that we do try also to put the elastic in, because sometimes you're in between, or sometimes maybe a small hat might work, or a medium-sized hat might work on a lady who has a smaller head if she just tightens it up a tad.
Okay.
And so that's helped us immensely in terms of being able to sell hats if it's a little bit adjustable.
Yeah.
We like to do that.
And sometimes when it's not that easily adjustable, somebody gives you a hat stretcher
Yeah,
for
I gave her
birthday
one for her
present.
birthday.
And I had to stretch this hat that she gave me to make it feel more comfortable on me, because it was a little too snug for me.
Yeah, we didn't bring one of those with us today, but
It's a ring it's not a perfect circle, but it's about this big around, and it has a toggle in the middle with screws on each end, which enlarges it. Yes.
Okay.
so you can just put that basically around the the band, what's fitting around your head,
Right.
and you can just keep tightening it a little bit, just kind of like a little bit at a time until you get it. I mean, it's not going to pull off miracles. If
Right.
you've got a large head and you've got a small hat, it's probably
not
not going
gonna
to work. But if you need just another 1/4 of an inch or 3/8
I
of
just
an inch.
sprayed a little moisture on here
Yeah.
and cranked it up, and next time I put it on, it would fit.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, what about maintenance of your hats? Are these washable?
This is totally washable.
Okay.
Cold water.
Okay.
It is 100% wool. It started out as a skein of yarn.
Right.
So, yes, this
Right.
is washable. These are washable. I would wash it by hand, but I would probably recommend spot cleaning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of them I would recommend spot cleaning, but some of them are completely immersible in water.
And then just put them like air dry.
Air dry,
Right.
or if you have a container that's the right size, like a Tupperware bowl, you can set them over a Tupperware
okay.
bowl.
Just to give it a little bit more
Sure.
shape. As
We
a
have
tie.
a hat that we're both crocheting on that's called it's hip to be square, and it is a square hat. And I blocked mine over a Kleenex box,
Oh.
a little square Kleenex box, and it worked perfect.
Well, I cannot wait to visit your shop. Tell us where your shop is located.
Well, mine is located in my home at 7 Hogan Drive in Milford.
Oh, in your home.
Yeah, we both have home studios.
Oh.
So we both work out of our homes. I live in Stone Lake Township, a little east of Milford, and we both. A couple times a year we have a spring. We just had a spring-summer debut at Virginia's home because she's a little more centrally located.
Okay.
And so we have a spring and summer debut there, and so everybody can come and see everything that we've done so far for this particular season, and perhaps pick up a nice sale hat from the previous season.
Okay.
We'll probably do a fall and winter in the August timeframe at Virginia's house. Besides that, we have a boutique in Milford called Villa Sanctuary. located in the historic district down on Main Street in Milford, Ohio.
Okay.
And Brad Price is the owner, and he carries a collection of our hats. So we have probably close to 20 hats there. And then in Centerville, Ohio, close to Dayton,
Right.
we have hats at Zigzag Gallery.
Okay.
And they're also owned by Kim Megason, and Kim has a collection of 15 to 20 of our hats at any given time too.
And is it in historic Centerville?
No, she's in the Cross Point. Cross Point.
I know where Cross Point is.
Okay,
Yeah.
she's in that plaza
right,
there.
Right.
But the interesting, you might find it interesting. Virginia and I make one of a kind. We very seldom duplicate a hat, very, very seldom. And if we do, we still have some minor differences in it. So when you go to Centerville, you're going to see different hats than if you were going to Milford.
Okay.
And that's why we like to have these debuts at the beginning of each season. So if you're really interested in seeing everything at one place.
We had over 100 hats at the show last month
March
at my
19th.
house. So it was, I had my dining area filled and my family room filled with hat trees and hats everywhere.
Yeah.
And, the ladies love to come in. They can see everything at one spot and make some selection. So it works out well.
We call it champagne and chapeau.
Oh,
So
I love it.
chapeau is a French word for hat.
Right.
So they come and they can sip a little mimosa or champagne or water, whatever their pleasure is.
So
And
tell me when the next chapeau and champagne event is happening.
Whether it's August.
Maybe.
it'll be in August.
Yeah.
We haven't
Okay.
picked a date
Yeah.
yet,
Okay.
but it'll be in August.
Okay.
The best way to keep track of us is on Facebook.
Okay. And I was just going to ask you your website.
Well, we've been talking about a website, but we don't have an active website right now. We might towards the end of summer, midsummer.
Okay.
Right now we're using Facebook as our basic website.
Okay.
And we're facebook.com/Two Stitches. It doesn't have them on the URL. It doesn't have the millinery on it.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, as we talked about our segment today, we'll be able to get the word out more
Good,
to
good.
Southwest Ohio
Yeah.
and wherever people may see.
And we're
see our
always
program.
open for private appointments.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have to, hit a debut, or you don't have to do anything. If you're interested in a private appointment, or if you see, I don't know, half a dozen hats on Facebook that you really like, we can always point you in the direction, or you can come to our house. I've had that many times where women come to the house and just kind of like take their time and go through all of the hats that I've got there in the studio. So,
Very good.
okay.
Well, this has just been so delightful. I mean, I've enjoyed reaching out. I just said, oh, here's a well, I thought it was a website, but I guess it was not.
Yeah,
it was
my-
just
yeah.
it was just your email address, or somehow I became connected.
I think what you saw was the Charlie Harper Red Cardinal hat
Maybe that
that
was
I had posted up on the Charlie Harper
that was probably it.
post, and you contacted me from that. So I
Right,
think that was a nice
right,
contact. Worked
Right.
out great.
That-
A little
I
pull
think
through
that
there.
must have been it, because I love Charlie Hubbard prints.
Yeah.
And P. Buckley Moss. I love her prints as well. And that is another place that I might introduce you up in Waynesville. That
Oh, okay.
might be another possibility if you're looking for
Well, next
other.
time we're there looking for fabric.
Yes,
It's fun to
yes.
go there and look for
At
fabric.
the Canada Goose Gallery.
Okay.
That's where she has a huge display. And
We'll
Laura,
check it out. We'll check it out.
ask for
In fact, we
Laura.
talked about going up there soon.
Yes.
It's always fun to go shopping for the
Oh,
fabric.
sure. Oh, sure.
You can never have too much fabric, right?
Wow.
Maybe.
Do you have, I bet you have interesting remnants, do you? Or I don't know, you probably use almost
We
all
do
your
use
fabric.
a lot of them, and then we donate what we don't feel like we will use. We donate to some quilting groups.
Great
Because even
idea.
the scraps, they'll take,
Sure,
4 inches.
right,
So, yeah,
right.
but we have quite a stash of fabric.
right.
Well, and speaking of donating, another thing, my daughter actually works here in Lebanon out at Otterbein.
Oh,
Okay, and so sometimes when I've fussed around with a hat or had it in the portfolio a little too long, I go, okay, Lori, come on over. I've got a bag of hats for you to take to the residents there at Otterbein. And they use them for giveaways and fun things like that. So some of my hats end up being donated up there. So that's great. It's a local neighborhood.
That is so great.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter's a school teacher, and she takes my extra hats to the school, and so the teachers all have hats around in Milford, so I can look
What
at them.
a wonderful gift, because it might not be something that people would take the time to look on their own, but to receive it as a gift.
Yeah.
How great is that?
Oh, and we also donated some hats just recently to the Loveland Stage Company.
Oh.
So that was fun. They
So
had a
the
production
theater-
of Hello Dolly.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
Yes.
So that was, we don't make theater hats, and we don't, a lot of the Hello Dolly hats that they actually wore were a little bit more flamboyant than what we do, but they used them in a set.
Mary would elbow me and say, "That's one of the hats right there.
That's one of the hats. See it back there?
You can you can pick them out,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
In a crowd.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, you two are just delightful.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And
It's been a pleasure.
I just am so happy that you took the time to travel to the studio today. And I can't wait to visit you in
Okay.
Milford.
Okay,
Both
good.
of your
Yeah.
both of your houses.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
see, I'll call ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
And but I will let you know when we can connect with a couple of the people that I mentioned to
That'd be
you.
great.
That'd be
to
wonderful.
Yeah.
To introduce you.
Always, that's always a good
always,
thing.
Always looking. Well, I hope our audience was able to pick out a style that you might be interested in purchasing. You've met the ladies that made these beautiful hats, and we hope that you jotted down some ideas, some occasions, some gift-giving ideas as well. As we've shown you, hats off to springtime. Here we are in the spring. We hope that you are feeling good. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe, please. We would love for you to do that. So tell your friends that we are so excited and delighted and thankful to Warren County Community Services for being our sponsor, and we hope that you are feeling good. Bye for now.